Hi everyone, welcome back to our GNI and Dataend webinar series 2 on data journalism and visualization for rookies. Today is our fourth webinar as well as our final part of the four-part series for this. And today we are going to talk about reporting with digital map. My name is Sir Guang King. You can call me King. Later, we'll be joined by Trina Leong, our co-trainer. She will join us during the Q&A sessions. All right, let's start. Again, just to let everyone know that this series, as well as the first series, as well as the second series, right, both series are funded and sponsored by Google News Initiative. The content is designed by Dataend, which is my company that is based in Kuala Lumpur, Malaysia. We help news organizations and journalists to produce data journalism, right? We do training, we do advocacy, we also do collaborations. Right, today we are going to talk about digital map. So there are several things that I want to share with you guys. First is, why do we use map in reporting? What are the purposes? And next we are going to talk about, what are the elements in digital mapping, right? Then I'm going to do a live demonstrations of using Google My Maps, which is probably the simplest tool online that you can use to make a simple map, and it's also free. And everyone has have access to Google tools, right? I assume. And we are also going to look at other more complicated and advanced mapping tools, right, for your future reference. And also we are going to talk about usability study, which I already talked about it last week during the data visualization session. But I think that is so important that I want to highlight it again this time, all right? So using map for data analysis, or using map as visualizations to analyze, to solve problems is not a new thing. So what I'm showing you here is actually a map of the Soho area in the city of London. And this was produced in 1854, right? Almost 200 years ago. And during that time, there was a cholera outbreak in the Soho area, right? And this map was produced by Jon Snow. This is not the Jon Snow in Game of Thrones, right? Jon Snow, he is a doctor during that time. He was trying to find ways to solve the outbreak, right? To stop the outbreak, right? So during that time, people did not know that cholera was spread by water, right? So there were different theories of how the disease was spread among people, and this Dr. Jon Snow, he suspected that cholera is a waterborne disease, right? Can be which is can be spread through water. But how do he prove his hypothesis, right? So what happens is that this map, you see the black color bars, right? Those bars shows the number of deaths due to cholera in the different streets, different address in the area of Soho. So what happened was, he collected all this data and he visualized the data on a map, right? And because he suspected, the disease was caused by water, the consumption of water, so he then plot all the locations of the different wells in that area, right? Because his hypothesis is that if the disease was spread by water, then we can just close the water well, and that might help to stop the disease, right? So you can see that there were 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. There were 7 wells in that area. And you can see that most of the death occurred near the well at the Broad Street, right? So he suspected, maybe this is the well that spread virus, that spread the disease. So he closed down the well and the disease stopped. So imagine that if he did not visualize the data on a map, it is very hard for him to see the relationships between the number of deaths and the location of the wells, right? So imagine when he collected all the data would be maybe in like a stack of papers and documents, right? So just looking at those streets address and the number of deaths, it is very hard for you to visualize the relationship between the wells and the number of deaths in different addresses, right? So in this case, a map can help you to see the insights and help you to solve real problems, right? So now let's come back to 2020. Okay, this was a story that I did with the type investigation. So what we did is that we want to look at the relationship between the surveillance camera and the location of the surveillance cameras and the crime rate in the city of St. Louis, right, in the US. So I'm going to quickly show you the story that we did. We produce a map. So in that map, we actually plot the locations where murders happen, homicides happen in last year, and we also have the, let me see. Okay. So we plotted the map, the homicides, as well as the locations of the CCTV, or we call it the surveillance cameras, right? So the surveillance cameras should be installed at locations where the homicides happen, right? Because the surveillance camera, the function of it is to fight crime, right? But what we found was that, so I'm going to show you the map here. What we found was that you can see the black cross, right? Those are where the homicides happen. And the cameras are the circles, right? They have we have three types of different cameras, right? So you can see that in this part of the city, right, there were many homicides here, but you have very few cameras in this area, right? What about this part of the city? This part of the city where you get a lot of cameras, but not many homicides, right? So we also plot the map, right, to use the color of different blocks to show you the percentage of black population. And you'll see that this is the area where there are more black population, right, compared to the area in the middle here, where you have a lot of CCTV, this area, but you don't have that many crimes or homicides, right? We can also visualize the income distribution in the city, right? So you will see that the dark colors block are those with lower income, lower household income. And again, in this area, this is the area where a lot of wealthy people live, right? This is a wealthier neighborhood. So from this map, we can see very clear that, the relationship between the cameras, okay, and the crime, right, are not proportionate. So which means that the cameras were installed at wealthier neighborhood and not neighborhoods that have more homicides cases, right? So this is actually a very long investigation reporting, right? That look at, what are the considerations, behind the installation of all this crime fighting surveillance cameras, right? So by plotting in a map, we were able to verify our hypothesis, which is, the location of the cameras, right, were not chosen, based on the crime rates, right? So that it is more. If you read the report, right, it is more about how this wealthy neighborhood they lobby the authorities to install the cameras, to take care of their neighborhoods, right? So again, using the data on a map, the map can help us to look at the insights here, to reveal the insights here. Without this map, it's actually very hard for us to compare, the locations of the neighborhood, the crime rates, as well as the. So another function of using map, right, is to reveal patterns, right? So this story is done by. This story shows the 5 maps, it's the analysis on the election results in French 2017, right? The presidential elections there. So it shows you that this is where the yellow color are the areas where the current President Macron. He won his support, and the blue color districts, right, the areas, right, are those that his opponent Le Pen. Le Pen, she is actually a candidate from the far right party, right? She won more support in those areas, right? So you can see that when you put it side by side, right, the election map. So this is the share of votes by Le Pen, right? Okay, compare with the unemployment rate in the country, you will see there is a clear relationship between these two, right? The areas where you can see that unemployment rate is higher, right? Those areas are the areas that Le Pen got higher votes support, right? So what about Macron? So you see Macron, those areas are here, right? And you can see that it correspondent with areas that has voters with higher education degrees, right? So those areas where more people are more educated, they tend to support Macron more, right? So using the map allows you to see patterns, right? Imagine if you want to describe these two patterns using just text, right? It's gonna be more difficult to understand, as well as it's not so direct, and again, this is very visual way of recognizing the patterns, right? Using map also helps you to explain better, especially when your reports or your information involve locations, right? This is the map in a neighborhood in Malaysia, right? Where during the pandemic, during the pandemic, Malaysia government has this enhanced MCO. MCO stands for Movement Control Order. So this enhanced MCO is actually equals to the lockdown, right, in many other countries. So which means that these three neighborhoods, right, are under the EMCO, or we call the enhanced MCO. They are locked down. They were barbed wired surrounding those neighborhoods so that people can't move in or out from this area, right? So when the news organization received the information that okay, these areas will be put under the EMCO the next day, right? The best way for people to understand, how big the area and where are the area is actually to draw a map, right? So you draw a map to show people where are the neighborhoods, the areas that were under the lockdown, right? So again, imagine if you were to explain these three areas using text, it would be a nightmare, right? You would be saying that, okay, from this intersections, until this corner here, and then you have to make a turn and then, go to this corner here. It's going to be very hard to let people understand. So in this case, making a map is actually the easiest way to explain the location, the geographical locations, right? And in the demonstration, this map is actually made by using Google My Maps. So in my demonstration later, I am going to demonstrate how do we use Google My Map to make a simple map like this. Right, and using a map also can make our information more engaging. So for example, this is a animated map that I made for the PRI, Public Radio International, based in Boston, US. So this map shows you the deforestation in the Borneo Island, right? Borneo Island is shared by Malaysia and Indonesia. So you see that, in the 70s, right, there were much more forests in the island. And what happened to them is that, most of the forests have been converted into oil palm plantations, right? So this, using a map, right, shows you the scale of the deforestation, and where are the areas that experience the most numbers of, you can see that it's here and here, right? Okay, experience the most number, the highest number of deforestation activities, right, in the past 40 years. Okay, so using a map can actually help you to deliver your information more effectively, because this visual, right? So visual can make your content more engaging. Using map also allows you to personalize your news information. This is a interactive map done by El País, which is a Spanish publication in Spain, and this is about the Spanish election, right? So this map allows you to check all the different neighborhood in where you stay around, your neighborhood, how did they vote in the last general election. And this one actually, according to them, right, this story was very, very popular. It received very high page views and clicks because a lot of people want to know. They are very curious about how certain neighborhood voted in the last election. So this map actually helps you to personalize, because you are able to see news information that is most relevant to you, right? The map on the right hand side, this is also an interactive map. This is a map developed by one of the organization in Taiwan during the pandemic. This shows the number of face masks available in different pharmacies in the cities, right? So you can see there are different colors code, right? And if you click on to any pharmacy here, you'll be able to see real-time data about how many adult masks or how many children masks are available in that particular pharmacy or shops, right? They are able to make this because the government actually control all the production and the distribution of the face masks. So the government is able to collect all the data from different pharmacy, and the government share the data out, right? And the publication make the map using the data, the live data, and use this and make this map, right, to make it more convenient, for anyone who wants to go out and buy a mask. So you know that which pharmacy still has available masks, so you don't have to make several trips just to find the correct pharmacies, right? So again, using a map here is able to personalize the information, right, that you're trying to deliver to your audience, right? This is another one that I made during the MCO, or the Movement Control Order in Malaysia. At the early stage of the MCO, the government of Malaysia, they restrict people when people want to go out, right? They want to buy things, they want to go and do anything, right? They can only travel within a 10 km radius from where they live, right? So many people actually wonder, like, how far is 10 km, right? So I make this very simple interactive, where you pick where do you live, using the Google Map interactive, the interface. You're able to see how big is the 10 km and how far you can go, right? So if you stay within this area, and if you were blocked by the police, then you were safe, right? If you travel beyond that radius and you were blocked, questioned by the police, then you might get into trouble, right? Because you have violated the movement restriction control. Okay, right. However, right, not every time we need to make a map, right? For example, this is a map that shows the COVID-19 cases in Southeast Asia countries, right? On the June 28, 2020, these are the accumulated cases. What's wrong with this map? If you look at this map, I'll give you a few seconds. What's wrong with this map? Look at the numbers here and look at the maps here. The numbers are correctly colored, okay, in the map here. So you don't have to check, whether this represents 50,000, right? The colors are correct, right? So the problem here is that Singapore, right? Singapore is the second country that has the highest number of COVID-19 cases in Southeast Asia. But we hardly see it on the map, right? Because why? Because Singapore is just too small, right? Because Singapore is very small, you don't really see Singapore on a map, right? So in this case, right, making a map like this, right, does it effectively convey the information that you want to convey, right? You can, of course, you are able to see Indonesia, right? But you are not able to see the second highest country, which is Singapore, on this map, right? Because it's too small, right? Because this map shows you the geographical size, right, of each country. It doesn't represent, the data here, right? So this is a problem, when you have maps like this, right? They are like a very small area in the map, which is very important in terms of your data, but it's not visible, right? It's not significant, in the map. This is where you have to rethink, how do I make Singapore visible here, right, to reflect the information that I want to convey, right? So let's try. I tried this. Is this map better than the one previously, right? It's the same data, right? It's same data, same countries. Okay, this map. The problem is that the advantage is that now you're able to see Indonesia, Singapore, and Philippines, right? You're able to see this country. But when it comes to other countries, right, you can only see like Malaysia here, Thailand here. What about Burma or Myanmar, Laos, Thailand, Vietnam, Cambodia, Brunei? You don't see anything because the bubble, or we call it dot, it's too small, right? Because the data it's very far away, right? For example, for Myanmar, it's about 300 cases compared to Indonesia with 52,000 cases. So in Myanmar here, you don't even see the dot because the dot is just too small. So if you present your data like this, there is another problem, right? The problem is that, okay, what about those countries? People might think that, oh, those countries have no case at all. Is that true? Or people might think that, oh, you did not show the data of those countries and people did not know why. It's like, why you didn't want to show the data there, right? So in this case, right, a lot of times, maybe a bar chart is better than a map, right? Because if you live in Southeast Asia, right, it's very likely that you know which country, the location of every country, right? You know the location. And in this case, the location is not that important, right? Whether, the virus is at the north or at the south part of Southeast Asia is not important. It doesn't give you any pattern, right? Say, for example, like, okay, because the weather here is colder, so we have less cases here. Because here is hotter, we have more cases here. It doesn't make it's not like that, right? The weather doesn't really affect the disease. Okay, so in this case, right, if we just want to show the number of cases for each country in Southeast Asia, maybe a bar chart is better, right? The bar chart will be able to show you who is the number one, who is number two, and even the countries that have very small number of cases, you can show them in the same chart, right? So you won't have problem like this when you're too small, you cannot see them, or because of their country area is very small, where although they have a very high number, you cannot see them, right? So you can address these two issues, right, by not using a map. So it does so just this is to give you a very important message that when you have locations or you have countries, right, it doesn't have to be always a map. Okay, sometimes think about maybe a bar chart is better when geographical locations is not the main information that you want to show. Then maybe it's not a good case for you to use a map. All right. What about this, right? When I was working in the US, I always struggle with this, right? When you are visualizing the 50 states in US, right? You see that these states, right, in the middle, and here in the northwestern, right, they always appeared very big. Um, Whether their data is very high. For example, this one has high percentage of Latino voters in these states, right? Even if your your Latino voters are not very high like here, right? Still, because of their geographical area, they take up a huge space on your map, right? The smaller states here, right? New York is here, Connecticut is here, New Jersey is here. Those are also important states, especially New York, right? But you don't see them. They are not really visible here because their geographical area is very small, right? So in this case, right, if you follow the geographical area, you will always see that those states with larger area appeared more significant on your map, and that sometimes might be misleading, right? So when I try to reproduce this map for my story, I change what we call it hex map. This is called a hex map, right? A hex map means that I no longer follow the geographical area of each state, but I convert them into the same size, right? Into a hexagon, right? Same size, but they are still arranged according to their geographical location. Their orientation is still the same, right? So in this case, I'm able to see New York, Connecticut, New Jersey, and even Rhode Islands, right? This one you will never see on the map here because it is a very small island here, okay, the Rhodes Islands, right? This one, but it is one of the 50 states, right? So in this case, you are able to see a more balanced or representative visualization or map, right? To for you to deliver the information, right? So these are some of the considerations when you design a map, right? Whether you want to use a map or whether a map that follow the geographical areas is the best map that you can produce. All right. So these are some of the issues when you're producing map. This is another example. This is actually a map of Europe. Okay. So instead of showing the real maps of Europe, this story convert each country into a square. Okay, but the squares are still arranged according to their geographical orientation, right? So that you are able to recognize UK is here, Ireland is here, right? Iceland is here, Denmark is here, right? But they will not have the difference because due to their geographical areas on the map, right? The real geographical areas, right? Okay. This is an example. How do you simplify a map? So just now we talked about when is the case when you need to use a map. Sometimes the map is not necessary. But if you really want to use a map, right, then don't do this kind of what we call a rainbow map, right? So sometimes the simpler it is, the more effective it is, right? So less is more effective, attractive, and impactful. You see this before and after, right? So it's easier to understand, right? Again, I have to repeat this again and again, is that our job as reporters, as journalists, our job is to deliver the information as effective as possible. We are not in job, right? We want to make our visualizations attractive, but at the same time, we want to deliver the informations effectively. Okay, so just remember that. Right, before we go into the live demonstrations, there's one thing that I have to remind you again. So sorry for those who have followed our series from the very beginning. I know I have been repeating this. It's what I call it a usability study, right? So before you publish anything, whether that it is a data visualization or it is a map, right? You should test it before you publish it, right? And how do you test it? You need just 5 users from your target group. So for example, if your story is targeting parents, you might want to ask 5 parents, right? If your story is targeting general public, then maybe you ask your colleagues from the HR department, from the marketing department. Just don't ask your journalists who are editors or who are journalists, right? Because they are journalists, they are editors, right? So they are very different, right? They are more news savvy. They are more familiar with news, right? So you want to ask somebody that is, part of your target group, right? You need 5. Why I say 5? Because according to study, right, if you have 5 users, which is around here, right? If you have 5 users, they are able to tell you about 80%, okay, of your usability problems. So what are usability problems, right? So when I do this test, for example, I'm making a map, right? I will make a map I will show it on a mobile screen because most of my audience, right? I think this is very true in Asia, right? Most of our audience consume our content on mobile screen. So we need to make sure that, our presentation on mobile screen is effective and we need to test it. So I will make my map on mobile screen and I will show to this person. I tell this person that, hey, can you have a few minutes for me? I would like to show you something. So I show this person the map without any explaining, right? Because when they consume your content on their mobile phone, nobody is standing next to him or her and explain what is the map about, right? So you just show the map and you have to count like 5 seconds, the most 5 seconds. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and you stop it. And you ask this person, hey, what is the information that you get from this map or from these visualizations, right? If the information that he or she tell you is not the information that you want to deliver, then there's a problem with your visualization or with your map, right? With your design. Then you have to redesign your map. And that is what we call it a usability study. A very simple thing, right? After you finish all your design, show to someone, give 3 or 5 seconds. Because why we give 3 or 5 seconds is because if people don't understand, when people are consuming your content online, right? If people don't understand your design, they will not spend more than 3 seconds on it. They will just swipe, right? Swipe away or go to another website. So you want to show them like 5 seconds and ask them, what is the first information, or what is the information that you remember from my visualization from my map. And if that information is different from what you want to deliver, ask further questions. Why did you get that? And redesign your map, right? After you redesign, you want to test it again, right? So usually just 5 users can find about 80% of your usability problems, right? So which means the second round, when you do it, when you still have time to do a second round testing, hopefully most users will be able to see the information that you want to deliver, right? So that is usability study. All right, now let's go into a simple explanation of what is a digital map. A digital map, right? A map is made of points, right? And a point is made of 2 data points, what we call a set of coordinates, right? So coordinates have 2 points, right? One is called latitude, one is called longitude. Yeah, if you still remember your geography lesson in your high school, that is a latitude and that's longitude, right? So there are sometimes the coordinates are written in a degree format, right? Like this, okay, the first one, degree, minutes, and seconds format. But on digital map making, usually we write the latitude and longitude, the coordinates, in a decimal points format with positive and negative, right? So for latitude, right, positive means location, any location above the equator line. Negative is below, right? And for longitude, positive means anything on the east side of the Greenwich line, and negative it's all the locations on the west side of the Greenwich line, right? And if you join multiple coordinates together, they will form a closed area, and we call that a polygon, right? So this is like your national boundaries, right? Your voting constituencies, right? Or there's an area that is flooded, right? You want to draw the area, so it's called polygon. You draw the area by connecting different coordinates to form a closed area, and we call that a polygon, or sometimes we call it a shape as well, right? So all this information, right, whether they are coordinates or they are polygons, right, they all store, they are all called GIS. GIS is Geographical Information System, right? And they are stored in different formats, right? Those are data, geospatial data that you can store in different formats, right? For coordinates, because you only have latitude and latitude, right? Latitude and longitude, right? They can be stored in a spreadsheet or in a CSV file. But if it is a set of coordinates and you join them together, right, following a specific sequence, right, you join them to form a polygon, then they cannot be stored in a spreadsheet or a CSV. They have to be stored in different file formats. And currently we have many different formats in the world, right? One is called a vector formats. The other one is called raster format, right? And vector formats, you will see they have KMZ. So you see the file name .kmz or file name .kml or SHP or JSON, right? KMZ and the KML files are the one that we are going to use in Google Earth or Google Maps, right? And there's a link here. You can click the link. There's a long article that explains to you different formats of GIS data, right? So yeah, you can get this link. No worries. I will share with you this PPT file, this PowerPoint file, so you can access all the links that I share with you and all the example stories that I showed you earlier, right? So there are some tools here that usually I use, and all of them are free or half free, partial free, which means that they will give you a limit for the free account. And if you hit that limit, then you have to upgrade. You have to pay to get a premium account, right? The first one is called My Geodata. This is very useful because it is able to convert all kinds of different geospatial data formats, right, into other formats. This is the interface of the MyGeo data. You can see I can convert KML to shapefile. I can convert shapefile to KML. I can convert CSV to shapefile, and a lot more other formats, right? The second one is called Map Shaper. This is an online, very simple tools that allows you to view your geospatial data as well as do some simple edits, right? This is QGIS, or we call it QGIS. It's an open source tool. It's open source tool. Sorry, it's an open source tool, which means it is free. It's very powerful, and many people use it, right? Because it's free and it's open source. But the learning curve is a bit steep because the user interface is not that nice, right? You have to install it, and then you can on your machine, on your laptop, and you can use it offline, right? And GADM is a website where you can download the geospatial files for different countries to get their administrative areas, right? For example, your country, you can get the national border, you can get the border of the different state, and sometimes even different districts, and sometimes even smaller area, right? But make sure you verify and verify and verify it again, because those are the maps that are handled by a group of academics, right? But if you want to look for the most accurate map, then it's the best that you check with your government agency, that handles all this geographical data, right? Each country has their own geospatial, or sometimes they call it geoinformatics department that have all this data file, right? We need this data file to actually make our digital maps, right? If you don't have this, if you just have the physical map, then it is actually quite troublesome to convert the physical map into a digital map, right? Okay, so digital mapping is about putting together different layers. Okay, you have if you are familiar with Photoshop, right, then you should be familiar with this concept, right? So you have different components and you stack them together, right? You adjust the transparency of each layers, and so when you are looking from top, right, when you're looking from top, you're able to see different layers of components, right, on the same screen. Okay, so that is where you actually construct your digital map. So the most bottom layer is called base map, right? Base map is like your Google map or like your OpenStreetMap, right? Whether you want to use a satellite image as the base map, or you want to use the Google Street Map as a base map. And on the base map, you can put your own data, right? It can be a polygon, it can be bubble, right? Bubble means that the what we call it markers, right? The markers, or polygon. Polygon means different shapes, right? So when we stack them together, then you're able to see your complete digital map, right? It's very hard to explain, so later I'll show you the live demonstration. I think that will be easier for you to understand, right? So next we are going into to use the tool Google My Maps to make our very, very simple map that you can embed in your website, or you can just do a screen grab and save it as a 2D image. All right. So you can also access the data that I'm going to use for my map through this link, bit.ly data GNI sample. All right. So I'm going to show you my data here. In the link that I share with you, there's a folder called Landslides Myanmar, right? So I'm going to use the data here to produce my map. Okay. Why I use this data, because recently, you know that just last week, right, there was a major landslide in one of the jade mines in Myanmar, and that has killed, I think, around 200 people, if I'm not mistaken, right? So, for example, if you want to cover, that story, right? So, how can you draw a map to show that, right? So, in this case, I actually got this data from NASA. NASA is the one that, the agency in the US, NASA, the ones deal with spaceships and all those things, right? NASA. So they actually have the data of all the landslides in the world, right? From 2007 to 2014. Unfortunately, we don't have latest data after 2014, right? So from there, I filter out all the landslides that happen in Myanmar, okay? because I'm going to plot it on a map, right? So this are the data that I get from NASA Open Data Portal. Right, you'll see that there are a lot of data about each landslide, right? For example, which country, what is the date, what is the time, and also if you go to the last two columns, there's a latitude and longitude. So this is important because this data will allow us to plot each landslide on our map, right? Okay. So they also have other, for example, this is the state, this Kachin state, the Shan state, and the country name and the landslide, whether it's large, medium, things like that, right? And this is where the source, right? I think they collected all the data from different media reports. Okay, yeah. So for example, the Myanmar Times, Burma Net News, and all the links here. All right. So I got this data, and you can get the source of the data from the same folder that I share with you. This is the link where you can get the data, and this is some of the information about the data set, right? So if you go into your Google My Maps, how do you go into your Google My Maps? It's very easy. As long as you have a Google account, you can just Google for Google My Maps, okay? And you'll see the link, you click on it, you click and you will get here, okay? If you have never created any Google My Map, then here is empty. You don't have any map, right? So all the maps that you have created will stay in this account, and this is part of your Google account, right? And everything is free, okay? Everything is free, okay? And from my experience, it's always there. I already created, maybe hundreds of maps already, but it's always there, right? Including the data is always there. So I'm now going to click create a new map. All right. And of course, it shows my location right now, right? I'm in Malaysia, KL, I'm in Malaysia, all right? So this is Thailand, right? This is the very typical Google map that we have been using. This is called the Google Street Map, right? If you zoom in, you're able to see the streets and those interesting places. For example, hotels, restaurants, all kind of shops, things like that, right? So this is this is actually called the base map. So here you can actually change the base map. For example, I want to change it to satellite map. Then the satellite map will shows you, the satellite images, right, captured by the satellites, right? Okay. So in this case, because I'm trying to visualize landslides, so it makes sense for me to show the satellite, rather than the streets map, right? Because I want to know the geography in that area, right? The topography, whether it's whether it is a mountain or river or things like that, right? So this is the base map. So you can see that at the bottom is the base map. Then on top of the base map, we are trying to put our markers, right? The markers of landslides. Landslides is not a shape, right? Landslide is actually a location. Remember just now the data I showed you, there's a latitude, there's a longitude, right? So which means that those are not shape files. Those are not polygons, right? Those are markers. Markers means the circles or the dots, right, that you want to put on the file. So I will start with a new layer, an untitled layer. I can name the layer, right? I can put in landslides. And I'm going to click import. And I can actually import a file from my Google Drive, or I can get a file from my laptop as well, right? But because I already shared with you the file on my Google Drive, right? So I'm going to find it from my Google Drive. So land slides. And actually, I saved the file in a CSV file, right? The file that I showed you. I'm going to show you again. This is the CSV file, right? The Myanmar landslides data 2007 to 2014.csv, right? Yeah, this is the file that I'm going to use, right? So I just click select. So your CSV will be uploaded into the Google My Maps, and then it will ask you, the first thing is choose columns to position your place marks, right? The place mark is those markers that I mentioned, right? So remember, these are all the different columns in your data, right? Different columns, right? So remember that the last two columns are latitude and longitude, right? So this is the columns from my file that tell them where to put the place mark, such as addresses or lat long pairs. So this is my lat long pairs, right? My latitude and longitude pairs. So because I named the column as latitude and longitude, so Google My Maps is able to recognize the two columns automatically. So you click continue, right? And you pick a column to title your marker. So each marker has a title, So what do you want to put in? So I'm going to put the date, right? Because I think that's the most important. I want to know when the landslides happen. Again, all these different columns, these different names actually come from your columns here. Okay, so you click finish, and now it's loading. It's loading your data into this map. Yep, now you see all the landslides in Myanmar. Okay, right. Okay, so I can now zoom to look at each landslide. So the recent landslide that happened last week actually happened here in this village. It's called Pakan. I don't know how to pronounce it actually. Pakan, I think. Right. So in this case, right, the satellite image as base map makes sense, right? Because you see that, this is actually a huge mining area. If you zoom in a little, you will see that, yeah, this is the mines, right? So if you are using the street map, right, the street map doesn't really tell you a lot about what the area looks like, right? So in this case, I think a satellite image is actually the best option, right? So if you click on any of this marker, it will tells you all the data that it gets from your CSV file or the data file that you provide, and you can edit those things, right? If you don't want to show, because your readers will be able to click on these markers and read the description of those markers, okay? So if you don't want to show them so many information, you can actually edit, right? Which one you don't want to show, and you can edit it, right? Okay. So if you want to add in the new descriptions for each marker here, you might want to go back and edit your CSV file. Right? Just add a new column, put in all the descriptions, and here you can just click on that description, and it will show up here, right? Okay. The other thing is that you can change this marker. For example, now it's blue dot, right? Blue, what do you call it? A droplet. I don't know how you call it. I'm going to change it into a landslide icon, right? There are different icon of crisis here. I'm going to do a landslide icon, and I'm going to change the color to red color, right? And now I am able to change my icons, right? Okay. So this is how I produce a very simple maps, that a markers map, right? That shows all the landslides in Myanmar from 2007 to 2014. And if I want to embed the map in my website, what do I do, right? So I'm going to show it. It's very easy. Okay, let's say this is the zoom level, right? So you have to go to the zoom level that we want the readers to see, right? So this is a zoom level because it is showing the whole country, right? And of course, give your map a name, right? Myanmar. Remember that all this information will be visible to your readers as well, right? Landslides. Okay, and then maybe a descriptions according to NASA Open Data Portal. Going to Dataend. Okay, you can of course put more description here, and once you have done with that, click here. Remember to click set default view, because this is the default view, right? You don't want your readers to start with a very zoom in map or a very zoom out global map, right? You want them to see when they open up the page, then they will see this this zoom level, right? So you click on set default view, and then you click on you need to share it, make it public to everyone. So right now, your map, every map that you have made, right, is by default private. It's just like your Google documents and your Google files and all those things, right? They're all private. So you want to make it public, right? So change to anyone with the link. So which means that anyone with the link is able to view the map, right? So which means that it is now public. Okay, so after you change this, you click done, and now you can click on back this menu, and now you can click embed the map on my site. Okay, and it'll give you an iframe code, right? An iframe code is like a YouTube video iframe code. When you can also, for your website, you can embed YouTube video, right, on your website, right? So this is the same concept, right? You embed it as a iframe. Iframe is like a terminology in internet web development, right? Iframe. Okay, so this is the same concept as, you know, embedding a YouTube video, right? The video still lives on YouTube, but you're just embed it as an iframe. So you can embed this map on your website. You just have to copy the code here, right? Go to your CMS or go to your publishing platform and put this iframe, right? You might want to change the width here. The width currently say 640, right? And then height is 480, right? So you might want to change the width to 100%. Okay, I'm going to show you really quick. I usually use a website, a tool called CodePen to test my embed code, right? So you just, this CodePen is for you to test your code, right? Any computer code, right? So I just go to start coding. You don't have to register for any account or login. You just go to start coding. And here you can actually put in your embed code. So I just copy and paste and put my code here, and you will see the map appears here, right? So you see the maps. So currently the width is 640, which means it's a fixed width, right? I can actually change to 100%, which means that it is responsive to whatever space that I give it, right? So now you can see that if I move it smaller, right, the map size will actually change according to my screen. Okay, so usually this is how I do this. So how do you adjust the zoom level here, right? You can go back to your my map, right? Put it properly, and then do the set default view again. You know, sometimes it will take some time for it to be refreshed here, right? Especially when your connection is not that fast. So for example, here, it will probably take some time for it to, so let me just refresh it, and I'll just paste it again. Let's see whether it has been updated. Just paste it under HTML, right? Yep, so you can see now, this now reflects my zoom level and my location here. So your readers will be able to click on each of this and to see the data. So these are where you can customize it, remember? All right, so I have another 5 minutes. This is how you embed. You can also print your map if you want, so that you can export it as a 2D non-interactive maps, all right? What else? If you want to draw your own map, right, you don't have all this data, right? You just want to do a simple map. For example, I'm going to demo a very simple map. So for example, let's come back to Malaysia. I'm going to find, for example, Batu Caves. So recently, there's a story about Batu Cave is actually a protected site, right? And there are some new development happening around this area. So we want to show people where the location is, right? Usually when the stories is about environment, you know, it's about overdevelopment, right? You want to show using a map, right, to see how close the development location to the protected sites and things like that, right? So when you search for Batu, let's say I will search for Batu Caves, right? It will show me the location. It will jump to this location just like you're using Google Maps, and it will add a marker, right? So, but we don't want this marker, so we're going to remove this marker. So in this case, what I am trying to do, let's say that, okay, I know that this is a protective area, right? And there is a new development coming out. So I want to show my readers where are the proposed development, right? I can draw my own map, right? So I'm going to add a new layer, right? So just now the first layer is about the landslide, right? I can actually remove the layer if I don't want layer, right? And let's say this is a new map, right? I want to put in a new components here. So I don't have data with me this time, right? I can actually draw myself. So let's say I'm going to show that, okay, this is actually the site that has been chosen for a future development project. Okay. Okay. And then here, you're able to put in all the different data, right? It will try to copy all the previous data from your other layer, but we don't need all those data here, right? Okay, I'm going to untick all of them. Oh, there's a lot of them. Okay, you can give post development. Okay. And you can, so after you untick, this is a lot of them. Okay, you untick all those data, because this is actually just because it automatically copy from the other layers, right? But actually this is not relevant to us because we want to build a new map, right? So you can actually put photos. If you have your own photos, you can upload from photos. You can also get the photos from internet if you want, right? So you can put the photos and you can save it, right? You can change the color. Okay, if I want to put yellow color, right? Okay, right. And now I can have this. When my users click on this, which shows the information that I put in. I can also put in description. I can also put in a video or an image, right? So besides from showing you the area, so this is how, remember the movement restriction control MCO map was made. Yes, it was made using this Google My Maps. So it shows you that you can also add just line, right? Let's say if I want to say that, okay, if you want to walk from this location to here, then you can do like this, right? And then you can do like this and come here, okay, for example, right? So once I'm done, I just click again, and then like this is the road to the development site, okay? And again, I can save it. I can change the color, okay, and also the thickness, okay, right? And then I can make my own map, right? So after you have finished this, again, you can go back here and then click embed on my site, and you can embed this map on your site. Or you want to print the map, export it as a 2D file, and then you can use Photoshop to add in the other annotation. Google My Maps is very, very simple. You can do a lot of things with Google My Maps, but it is the fastest way that allows you to make a very simple map, right? And you might do some post-production works, right? Which means you want to add in a title, you want to have like a box to describe this area, right? Just like the example that I showed you earlier, right? Then you have to, and you can do that, in your graphics tools, your graphics software like Photoshops and all those things, right? So this is just some very quick demo to show you that Google My Maps is actually the simplest tool that allows you to make a map. And okay, all right, let's go back to my presentation. So just to show you that these are other tools that you can use to make a map, and more complicated, more advanced tools. So QGIS, just now I told you, the interface look like this. Okay, Data Wrapper also allows you to upload your data to make the maps. Flourish allows you to make very fancy maps, animated maps, like this one or this one, right? You can move, zoom in, zoom out, things like that, right? This is actually showing the earthquakes in Southeast Asia, right? So there are also other tools, Carto, ArcGIS, Google Earth Pro, Google Earth Pro Studio. These two are free. This is a paid product. Carto is very powerful map making and map geospatial analysis tools, but it is also not cheap, right? And you can see all those, if you see all those very, very good maps made by, for example, New York Times or Washington Post, most likely they don't use any of the tools here. They use the programming language, right? So they are you can use D3. D3 is a programming library to make maps. You can use Leaflet, or you have Mapbox or Google Map API, right? So again, some of you have seen this, right? I will share with you last week is that these are some of the newsletter that keep you updated about the world of data visualization and data journalism, right? They will send you the newsletter every 1 or 2 weeks to tell you, what are the new things happening in the industry. And if you want to learn more about data journalism or data visualizations, these are some of the online courses that you can take at your own pace to learn more about data journalism. All right. So now as the end of our webinar, so again, for our last part of webinar, we also have a feedback form that we hope you can fill up and let us know what do you like about the sessions, what you don't like about the sessions, and tell us in the future what would you like us to cover. Currently, we have no plan for series 3, but we might look at all your feedback forms and see if there's anything that we find that are appropriate, that are very popular, that people want to learn about, and is within our capacity to deliver it. Then we might consider a series 3 on a different topic on journalism. All right. And thank you very much. So if there's any questions, I'm going to look at those questions. So just give me a minute.
Hi, King. I don't see any questions at all. So it looks like no one has asked anything so far.
All right. That's good. Yep. So just to let you know that all the previous series, we have series 1 on fact checking and digital tools. There were 2 webinars in series 1. Series 2, we have 4 webinars. All 4 of them are on data journalism for beginners. Okay, so all these 6 webinars in total are available on our Google News Initiative YouTube channel, right? So you can come back and watch it again if you don't remember anything, or we also encourage you to share with your newsrooms if they want to learn new skills, new tools in doing better journalism. And if you have any questions, if you want to engage us more on other topics or on trainings, we do have training programs for newsrooms in Malaysia. Okay, so if you want to have one of those training sessions, you can contact us via our emails or our Twitter. Is right now on the screen. All right. If
Okay, I
there's
think
no questions
that's
from
about it.
everyone,
Yeah.
There's one comment from Ali Imran saying that he wants to seek for a tutorial on YouTube. Right now, we have all the webinars on YouTube. We don't have tutorial yet, but if you're interested in a tutorial, we can talk privately and see if we can arrange some trainings for your newsrooms. If your newsrooms are based in Malaysia, all right, we only cover Malaysia. Okay, and that's all from me and Trina. Tomorrow and the day after, we'll be doing the same sessions in Bahasa Melayu tomorrow, and in Mandarin on Thursday.
Thursday, right?
All right.
Okay. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. Bye
Thank you.
bye.
Bye.